It says, "For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and thy mother." So here we have a commandment. Isn't it good to honor your father and mother? Yes. "And he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say," who is ye referring to? That's right, the Pharisees. "Ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have ye made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition." Hold on. Jesus is saying that people have made God's commandments no power in his commandments now. He has taken away the power in his commandments. They have taken away the power because of their tradition. They were saying, it's okay. You are to honor your father and mother, but if you tell them whatever they get from you is just a gift, then that means that you're free. But no, honoring your father and mother means taking care of them. They brought you into this world. They took care of you. You are to honor them too. And so Jesus is saying here, you hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me. So hold on, these people are worshiping God. But he's saying it's vain. Why? Teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. There are many different traditions, many different customs. We live in a culture. We all live in a culture. And the commandments of people around us can sometimes interfere with what God says to do. And so we can think that we are worshiping God. We can even honor him with our lips. But our hearts can be far from him. And we could be worshiping him in vain because we are not learning what he says, but doing what other people say. And so it is so important for us to make sure we are searching the scriptures and God is teaching us. It's okay to ask people or to talk about the scriptures with others, but it's even more important for us to study for ourselves. Wouldn't you agree? The next situation we want to look in is back in Isaiah 28. In Isaiah chapter 28, we have the same situation, but God is highlighting something specific. Isaiah 28, another situation, a specific situation, is being addressed. And so, in Isaiah chapter 28, we have verse 9. Whom shall he teach knowledge? Who's he referring to? If you look at the previous verse, in verse 5, it says, In that day shall the Lord of hosts be for a crown of glory and for a diadem of beauty unto the residue of his people. And it continues talking about in verse 7 how people have erred through wine and through strong drink have gone out of the way. But then it goes into the fact that the priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. Now hold on. The priests and the prophets were the people who were supposed to teach you what is true. And so if they're drinking alcohol, if they're drinking and their judgment is stumbling, the verse continues, All tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. Who is going to teach what is true? And so verse 9's question makes sense. Whom shall the Lord teach knowledge? Whom will he make to understand doctrine? The answer comes. Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts. These two phrases are referring to babies. Who are weaned from the milk? Babies. Who are drawn from the breasts? Babies. Little children. It continues, for precept must be upon precept. What's a precept? A command. Line upon line, line upon line. Measuring line, measuring line, measuring line. These standards It says here a little and there a little. These standards, these things, they're given not all at once, but little by little. These commandments that we're supposed to do, they're giving little by little. A baby being taught makes so much sense here because with a baby, they have to learn little by little. They have to hear command after command. They have to see the standards. They have to measure up to what people tell them. And so in verse 11, you can read it and study 1 Corinthians chapter 14 to see what that's talking about. But then in verse 12, it continues, to whom God said, this is the rest, wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest. God is speaking to his people, and he's saying, this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear. He was trying to give them rest. He was trying to give them rest because they were weary, but they would not hear. And then in verse 13, we are taught, but the word of the Lord was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So these same people are getting taught the same way the babies are, but the only difference is they would not hear. They wanted to have rest because they were weary. They wanted to be refreshed, but they would not listen to God. What does it mean to hear? What interferes with hearing? It's safe to say that the babies would listen, but these people wouldn't. Let's go to another part of the Bible to see a similar situation and how to hear. Because it seems that the situation that we want to be in is where God teaches us. We are to be babies. We are to learn little by little the standards of God and his commands. Don't worry about what you don't know. We're going to be learning from God. And you don't have to know everything now. He wants to teach you little by little. But the only condition is, or the other condition we're finding out is, we need to hear him. So let's turn to Ezekiel chapter 12, verse 2. Ezekiel chapter 12, and we're going to be looking at verse 2. Ezekiel 12, verse 2, it says, verse 1 and 2 says, the word of the Lord also came unto me, saying, Son of man, thou dwellest in the midst of a rebellious house. What is rebellion? It's going against what is right. Which have eyes to see, and see not. So these people, they're supposed to be able to see, but they can't. Even though they have eyes, they can't see. They have ears to hear, and hear not. Wow. They can't hear, but even though they have ears, it makes sense that they can't hear because they are a rebellious house. And so in Isaiah chapter 28, we're finding out that though God may speak to us and teach us, we may not be taught because of rebellion. Those who are rebellious cannot hear God. Those who are rebellious, they can't even see. They are blind. It is dark. And so, here we have a third condition. If we want to be taught by God, we must not be rebellious. The opposite of being rebellious or disobedient is being obedient. We have to want to obey God. We have to obey God no matter what. It doesn't make sense for us to have teaching from God and not obey it. Because if he knows what's best, why not obey it? Ezekiel chapter 12 verse 2 explains, but we want to go to another passage of scripture which elaborates as well on this same topic. Jeremiah chapter 6. Jeremiah chapter 6, and we're going to be looking at verse 10. And we're also going to be looking at verse 16. Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 16. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 10 and 16. To whom shall I speak and give warning that they may hear? Behold, their ear is uncircumcised. Someone is trying to speak, and he's wondering who will hear. But some people's ear is uncircumcised. And it says, and they cannot hearken. Behold, the word of the Lord is unto them a reproach. They have no delight in it. If the words of God are to you a reproach, what's reproach? They're annoying. They have no delight in it. Do you see here that to be taught of God, you have to delight in the instruction given? If His words, if His rules, if His standards are annoying to you, then your ear is uncircumcised. You cannot hear. Though He may speak to you, though He may tell you the truth, you may reject it because you do not delight in what He is trying to tell you. And so if we want to be taught of God, not only are we to be obedient, but we must take delight in what He tells us, because it's only for our good. So, we want to look at a situation where this comes up again. Isaiah 28 was not finished because we did not go to what the solution was. So let's go to Isaiah 28. Isaiah chapter 28. And we want to hear the solution. It says in verse 14, Wherefore hear the word of the Lord, ye scornful men, that rule this people which is in Jerusalem. So these people, God is speaking to them. And skipping down to verse 16, it says, Therefore thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone. What is God going to do? And what is his situation? His solution? He will lay in Zion a stone. Not just any stone, but a tried stone. And the verse continues. Not just a tried stone, but it says a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believeth shall not make haste. What exactly is he talking about? He says judgment will he lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet. And the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and water shall overflow the hiding place. God is going to put judgment on the measuring line. People will be able to see judgment in these standards. They will see righteousness coming out. Hail will sweep away lies. And so if lies are removed, then truth can come out. But it's all going to come through this precious cornerstone. And people will have to believe. What is this precious cornerstone? Let's go to Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. And we're going to be looking at verse 20. Ephesians chapter 2 is going to tell us what exactly is this stone. What is being referred to? And how is this a solution to our problems if we want to be taught? Ephesians 2 verse 20 says, And are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus himself being the chief cornerstone. Jesus is the chief cornerstone. It makes sense that Isaiah 28 was talking about believing. When all the world may be doing what is wrong, and those who are supposed to be teaching what is right may be erring in judgment because of alcohol, because of their bad habits, because of whatever it may be, Jesus is the chief cornerstone, and he is the teacher. He is the one who can teach us what is truth, because he is the truth. And so it makes sense that even though the people in Israel's day were not doing their job, Jesus came to take away the lies, to show how justice and judgment could be put in these standards that were already there. And so, let's turn to Matthew chapter 11 to see how this plays out in real life. Matthew chapter 11, and Jesus is speaking, and we're going to correlate what we have just learned in Isaiah 28 the same way we did before. Matthew chapter 11, and we're going to be looking at the end of the chapter. Matthew chapter 11, And Jesus is speaking. And I'm sorry, we're in Mark chapter 11. Sorry about that. Matthew chapter 11. And towards the end of the chapter, God is speaking through Jesus Christ. And he says in verse number 25 of Matthew chapter 11, verse 25. At that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for it seemed good in thy sight. All things are delivered unto me of my Father. No man knoweth the Son, but the Father. Neither knoweth any man the Father, save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. This makes so much sense, because Isaiah 28 said that God will teach only those who are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast, babies. And this chief cornerstone is the only way we can get to know the Father, the only way we can know truth. In fact, the Father is hiding the truth from the wise and the prudent. Do you see how everything is connecting? Those who will hear, those who are not rebellious, those who will submit to the discipline of learning here a little and there a little. And then the people then did not want to receive rest. But here we have Jesus saying, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Whereas in Isaiah 28, people, they did not want to obey the Lord. They could not get this rest because they would not hear. They were rebellious. He says, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. What's a yoke? It was used to hold up burdens. Learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. Ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Whatever God asks you to do, whatever Jesus tells you to do, it is light in comparison to the burden of sin. Whatever you do for the Lord, it will help you to get that rest from Him. He wants you to take your burdens to Him and do what He says. He wants to remove the lies in your life that you may have been believing. He wants to make you happy. And He says His burden is light. And so if we want to go to this chief cornerstone, if we want to go to Jesus, then He will take away the burdens we have and teach us the truth. And so we can go to our next point, which is in Proverbs chapter 2. Proverbs chapter 2. So far we know we are to be taught of God through Jesus Christ. We are to be taught of God if we are not rebellious. And we also know that even though there are people in our lives that God has placed there to teach us the truth, we are to go to God ourselves. It is not enough to go to men because they might make mistakes, but we are to go to Him. So even as you are studying, write down these scriptures so that you can look at them later. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 2, verse 1 through 6. It says, My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee. So we are to receive words and hide the commandments with us, so that thou incline thine ear to wisdom and apply thine heart to understanding. So we are to incline our ear, hearing, and apply our heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and lift up thy voice for understanding. So these people are crying out for knowledge and understanding.